Welcome back to Old School Eats. I'm Derek Old School Fournier, and this video is a little bit of a departure. This is a video that's going to be about using pulled pork leftovers brought back by sous vide. And when I originally did the video for this, I had all my sous vide stuff in there, and the video, of course, got incredibly long because my videos are always incredibly long. But to save you that frustration, I'm putting the sous vide stuff at the end, and we're going to cover the three uses I had for pulled pork leftovers, which were a pulled pork grilled cheese, pulled pork quesadillas with Mexican street corn, and pulled pork egg rolls. We're going to cover that next. As part of our using barbecue leftovers here on Old School Eats, we're going to do a pulled pork mac and cheese. Now, this is straightforward, and all of the leftover usage that I'm going to do today, I'm going to do 3 recipes. And to be honest, when I edit them, I'm not sure what sequence they're going to be in, so I could pretend, but I won't. But the first one is really a very simple one, and it is a a grilled cheese. Now, I'm using brioche bread because I'm fancy like that, I guess. It is also wrapped in the noisiest possible wrapping you could fathom, which if I had been worth anything, I probably would have taken it out beforehand. I've got 2 slices of brioche bread that I'm going to use because it's a sandwich. Then I've got butter. Just a little point here, you could also use mayonnaise. A lot of people use mayonnaise. Could also use ghee for your grilled cheese. The mayonnaise and the ghee are easier to spread, but I actually like the flavor of butter. And I am going to be exceptionally fancy because I use a lot of cheese in grilled cheeses. You may be able to discern that from just watching this channel. I've got some provolone from Publix, I've got some Boar's Head Muenster, and I've got some good old Boar's Head Yellow American that I'll use to assemble this sandwich. So, and then of course the star of this is the pulled pork. You guys remember from the sous vide, we brought that back in the sous vide. To be honest, if you're doing these leftover things, if you're not just eating it in a bowl, which is what I chose to do for lunch, you can really bring it back any way you want. I was watching some other videos out there, some great content producers, and they pulled it back from the fridge, and they actually started from frozen or let it thaw in the fridge. You can do that because the fat is still in that pulled pork. But for us today, I've already got it heated up slightly, and we're going to assemble our sandwich. This should bring you back to your childhood, as it's sort of like putting together Legos, and I do acknowledge that my approach to this is very cheese forward. So feel free to adjust as you see fit. But I like to create sort of an envelope of cheese for the protein to sit in. In this case, the protein happens to be pork. So I've got a slice of provolone, a slice of American, and then a slice of Muenster that will go down. And I'm gonna grab my pulled pork. Now, you don't want to overfill these things because they get to be quite messy. There I go, using a gloved hand and a non-gloved hand like a true amateur. And then I'm going to come back over the top of this with another slice of Muenster. And I'm probably not going to do 6 slices because that would be gluttonous even for my taste on cheese. But I have to get another slice of American in here. Who am I kidding? Let's just go ahead and do it. Again, like any recipe, you can choose to do your own thing. We have our grilled cheese sandwich combined. Now what we're hoping for is, as this gets cooked, all of those cheeses are going to melt together and blend with the pork, and we're going to end up with a delicious grilled cheese sandwich. Now you notice I have no butter on this yet. What I'll do is I'm going to take you over to the stovetop. Now, I originally thought that I would do all this on the Blackstone, and I'm going to do the other 2 on the Blackstone, but to be honest, I really want to get this one knocked out in the kitchen. You could do this on a griddle if you have it, griddle top on a gas grill. I don't know why I'm stating the obvious, but anything that gets hot, you could probably do this on, as long as it's flat. But we're going to do it here in the kitchen in a nice pan. Okay, we're over to our cook surface. As I've mentioned before on previous videos, I have an induction cooktop. So any of you out there who have the joy of using gas, please don't make fun of me. But my wife had a blood feud with the gas company. I'm going to put down a couple of pats of butter here in this pan. Pan surface is about 350 degrees, which is nice. I've got my grilled cheese over here on the side. Remember, if you're on induction, you can't put metal on there, otherwise it starts to think you're doing something crazy. So I'm going to get that butter going a bit. It's actually a little hotter than I want. Drop it down just a little bit. I'm going to take my pre-assembled grilled cheese and I'm going to sit it in this pool of butter. So that covers half of the buttering that we need to do. Now I'm not going to do anything else with it. I want to sit there and cook in that butter, but I am going to go ahead and put a couple of pats of additional butter on the top. At this point, any of the more health conscious people who watch this channel, which by the way, why do you watch this channel, are going to be like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot of butter. And the answer to that question, or the response to that feedback is, yes it is. We're going to grill this up. I'm going to check the bottom. I don't want to overcook it. And I know that I need to get the heat up in the middle. So I want to get a nice toast going on the outside. But I'm almost using sort of, and I think it was the Hey Grill Hey person with the just keep flipping steaks method. I tend to use a just keep flipping grilled cheese method as well. So we'll let this thing cook and then we'll go from there. All right, we've been going for a minute and a half or so. The butter is browning just a little bit. The pan temperature is about 390 degrees. I'm going to use my gloved hand to kind of smash things down just a little bit. And I'm going to get under this with this giant Mac Daddy spatula I have. And then, of course, take the risk of the lifetime to do the first flip. You see we've got a really great toast there. And now the butter that was on the bottom gets activated. I'm going to give a nice squish down because I want that cheese to start to melt together into a concert. Wow, I really did get a nice toast on that. So we're going to go for another minute and a half or so. If you'll notice on the side here, and I'll try and get some video of that, the provolone is our sort of canary in the coal mine to let us know that the melting process is going well. It's starting to droop over the side, but we're going to let this go for about another 90 seconds to 2 minutes and see where we're at. I think you can probably notice down here on the bottom with the provolone, as I mentioned, with the canary in the coal mine, it's starting to droop over. I'm going to flip this guy again, see where we're at. Didn't get as solid or as consistent a toast because the butter wasn't as consistent. So if I had taken it out and put more butter in the pan, I'm sure that would have been fine. That said, I've got a nice presentation side regardless, but I'm cooking at home anyway. I want to get that back onto the other side, however. And if you'll see down here in the pan, I think you can see the camera, that butter's browned up a bit, and my cooktop is not level. I suspect you all suffer a similar malady in your homes, unless you're in an incredibly fancy commercial or luxury kitchen. This is where I will move it around to get some of that butter off the bottom of the pan. Again, one of the fatter things I've said on this show, but you're getting a pretty good view of that cheese cross-section there. It's coming out nice. A thing to remember with this is everything can be eaten as it was. You can't screw this up. It's one of the great things about leftovers on a grilled cheese. Though I do think a very good grilled cheese is an art form in and of itself, and it really is about time. Giving it time to cook. Now, see, I just did something stupid for my image because I tilted it over and I got the cheese onto the back, so it toasted out. I'm actually very pleased with this. I think we're done. We're going to plate that. All right, we're back with our grilled cheese. We're going to give it a diagonal cut because that's how you cut sandwiches, in my opinion. I, of course, did not choose the sharpest of knives because why would that make sense for a cooking channel? But we'll take a look at that. Give you a cross section. Give this camera a cross section. We'll have our first bite. See, we got cheese melt across the whole thing. Listen, this is not a sandwich if you don't like butter and if you don't like cheese. Now, a couple things you could do. You could certainly sauce the pork. I don't sauce my pork usually. You could also make a dipping sauce for it. But at the end of the day, this is just a damn grilled cheese with some delicious pulled pork in it and a great way to reuse pulled pork barbecue. I could have probably cut this a little bit smaller because I'm going to reincorporate the crunchy bacon back into the street corn. So this could have been a little smaller, but these will work fine, I suspect. Frozen corn. I've heard discussion about using fresh corn. I've never actually used fresh corn for this. I've always used frozen corn. And that top is what we want. We want to really get some char on this. You want to move it all around so all the kernels get coated in that good bacon grease. And I realize how incredibly redneck I must sound when I say things like that good bacon grease, because everyone else in the world will tell you that bacon grease is not good. I think for cooking it is almost sensual. And I also think using animal fats is great. It's interesting, you can almost smell the sugar from the corn starting to cook out. We're not getting the char yet, but that'll be coming. We're almost to the point where I like to season this a little bit. We are going to put some garlic paste in here. You don't want to do that too early. As is pointed out by every cook now, that will trigger the garlic to burn. I've got a set of seasonings over here as well. Normally it's paprika and then some sort of a cayenne pepper, a chipotle, something like that. I've got Heath Riles garlic jalapeno rub, and I've got an SPG. I'm going to hit it with the SPG now. That's going to get a little bit of salt and pepper and a little hint of garlic. Not too much. You guys know that I'm a huge fan of Cosmo Q's SPG, which is what I'm using there. And then I chose this chipotle chili. I'm a huge fan of chipotle. I think the smoky flavor is good, and I don't have smoked paprika, which, taken from a page from Sam the Cooking Guy, I do like to use, but I like the color that paprika gives us. So I get a little paprika in there on top. Give that a quick throw around. Oh boy, those things are starting to open up. The fragrance is really starting to open up on those seasonings, which is great. Now you may be wondering, why the hell am I making Mexican street corn to go with a quesadilla? Well, I don't like vegetables that much. Again, somewhat predictable. I don't have a huge blood feud anymore as an adult, but I don't like big chunky vegetables in my quesadillas. But I do like some sort of a crunch, and I thought the Mexican street corn in there would be good. And I'm thinking about, for the other recipe we're going to do with leftover barbecue, which are pulled pork egg rolls, I was going to use fried onions in there, but I may try this as well. Now I'm going to hit it with a little bit of butter, because what could be bad about that? At this point, I'm going to use some garlic paste as well. Now all you do once you get this off the cooktop is you incorporate it with either a crema, a sour cream, or a mayonnaise. I've always been sort of traditional. I use the mayonnaise approach. I've seen people mix sour cream and mayonnaise. A lot of people say if you use mayonnaise and you use lime juice, you get the same effect. But today we're just going to be using mayonnaise as sort of the binder to make this a corn salad. And there's a name for that, a Mexican name for that. I can't remember what it is, but I'm sure it's cool. Oh, the last thing that I do that's a little bit different is I actually mix in some of the cotija cheese now. Now you put that in afterwards as well. That was probably obnoxious on the microphone since I did that right next to the mic. I got some cotija cheese. I use my awesome Amazon grinder deal to grind up. And I do that because I want that cheese to melt in with the corn a little bit better than it will in the bowl. Oh boy, that looks good. Holy jamoly, that looks good. All right, that is smelling super fantastic. So I'm gonna get that off the cooker. Get over here to the cold side so I don't have a mess. I don't burn this cheese, but I want the crunchy cheese. Get that over here, and we'll get it off. Oh. Well, that's what happens. Sometimes you screw up and you forget to reincorporate ingredients. I forgot to bring my bacon back into the party. So we'll bring that in. Get that all mixed up. Fortunately, I've got a giant ass cooktop. Easy enough to do. That back over from the side. And now we are quite literally cooking with gas. Blacktop is back in the low 500s, low 400s, high 400s rather. And we've got all the remnants of the street corn off. I hopefully have relocated the camera far enough away that it's not going to overheat this time. I've got some basic shells, submission style burrito shells. My family likes the bigger ones. for quesadillas. I always find it interesting that they seem to try and mate in the bowl. Now there should be enough grease on here to lubricate the cooktop, but if not, we will put down some butter. We get that down, and it's really a pretty simple construction. Like I said, when you're doing leftovers, there's no magic to these things. I tend to want to toast up both sides of the shell a little bit. I'm going to lay down a, some would say not healthy layer of cheese. I would say extremely healthy. Should have gloved up, making this for my family, so I don't really care. Some pulled pork, and some of that corn salsa, or Mexican street corn, right in the middle. And I have can already tell I've overfilled this guy. We'll go with 2 hands and do the bend. Then the ever popular griddle dual maneuver. Now the nice thing about this, or one of the nice things about this, is once it gets to the desired doneness, you can cut it right here. I've made that thing very thick, however. Let's make sure that we get the cheese to melt. That's really all you're waiting for here. Heating up the pork and letting the cheese melt. Every time I twist it, I lose some corn, but that's okay. When you start getting a little bit of brittle on the shell, you know you're about where you want to be. Give that a cut. Bring that over to our plate. There you have a pulled pork and Mexican street corn quesadilla on the Blackstone. Nothing fancy, but super delicious. Okay, so I've got my pulled pork quesadilla with Mexican street corn. I'm gonna give it a taste here. I'll show the camera. There we go. A little cross section. You should have gotten decent footage from before, even with Camera Apocalypse 24. So my wife came home and she tried this side and she liked it. I like it a great deal. And I like it primarily for 2 reasons, other than the fact that pulled pork is in it and cheese is always good. This Mexican street corn, and this is my son Nick's idea, by the way, so I got to give him credit. The spiciness that I talked about being in the Mexican street corn, paired with the sweetness of the actual corn itself, really cool combination. I've never had it anywhere. I'm sure there are people that serve it. Delicious. This is a win. I will do that again. And the Mexican street corn made a nice portion. Easy enough to bring that back and use as leftovers whenever you want to. Our last pulled pork leftover recipe are our pulled pork and fried onion egg rolls. And so we'll be doing those next. All right, folks, we're going to try and do one of these live. I've done a couple of tests. What I found is I had an idea for 2 different kinds of egg rolls. Pulled pork and these crispy onions, because I want some crunch and I hate coleslaw. And pulled pork and some of the Mexican street corn. The oniony deals work pretty good, except for you've got to kind of incorporate them in with your pork in advance, sort of in your hand. Because if not, they create like barbed wire and they tear the egg roll shell. And that sucks. I have an example of that sitting over on the board, which I'll show you. But if you pre-combine them, this is the example I was telling you about. See how it tore? I'm going to try and fry it anyway, because I'm a glutton for punishment. But if you pre-combine them, they seem to protect the egg roll. I'll do a little egg wash here on the end. And we'll roll that guy up. And now we got 2 little egg rolls to go. The other thing is, if you have the patience that I do, which is roughly equivalent to 0, egg rolls are kind of a pain in the ass. Because they all come out super solid and awesome, except for that's 2 of them. So you got to peel them apart. You guys may already know that, and you're like, why are you telling me this basic shit? Well, because it wasn't basic to me, so I thought it might not be basic to someone else. the Mexican street corn ones, from a logistics perspective, seem to work a little bit better. Now, whether they'll taste better or not, I overstuffed this guy a bit. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. My man Bradley Robinson did the same thing, and he's an awesome guy and super smart, so we'll see. Maybe I can get away with it. We'll get that guy tucked in, fold it over. His comment was it's just like folding a brisket, which is true, except for I suck at that too. That's why I use the foil boat method. But that actually worked out pretty good. These are the ones that you saw me just prepare. That's the one that was the test one that popped. You see it's bubbling. My guess is that one's going to be a little bit on the greasy side. One thing to remember is you do have to kind of knock these guys around a little bit because they'll pick a side they like. You want to roll them around so you get equal color across the entire egg roll. In our first taste test of the sacrificial egg rolls, we think they need more goop in the middle or they need a dipping sauce. And I remember from Bradley Robinson's whole hog egg roll, he did like a chili, like a Thai chili, a sweet chili sauce, which sounds like a great idea. I did not prepare that for this, but it's a great idea. Or even ranch or any of your normal dressings. But as a carrier of flavor, this stuff seems to be working out pretty good. Here are our first two test egg rolls. Let's see what they turn out like. That's the one with the crispy onions. Looks good. Oh yeah. That tastes good. Here's the one with the Mexican street corn. I don't know if I got enough in there. Street corn's a winner. We'll fry these other ones off, see how they come out. Those are just test ones. All right, here goes the real taste test and the wrap up. Takeaways, working with egg roll wrappers was a bit of a pain in the ass for me because I have no patience, but I really like the promise it has. I like making my own boudin, and boudin casing is hard for me to pull off. I'm not a sausage maker by trade. And so when I was in New Orleans last time, there were people using egg roll wrappers for this, and they're really, really a great vehicle for proteins. And it's a great vehicle for this one. I mentioned in the early taste test, my wife mentioned it was a little bland in the middle because the pulled pork is good, but it's just pulled pork, and then it's got some dirty onions in it, or it's got the Mexican street corn, which I think is better. But a dipping sauce is the answer, and I didn't prepare for one. But as I mentioned, Bradley Robinson did a great video on whole hog egg rolls, and he tied it with a Thai chili lime sauce or something like that, or sweet chili sauce, and that sounded great. But I'm gonna take a bite here for you guys. This is the ones that just came out. This is one of the guys I'm not gonna eat. It came out really good. See that? The crunch is great. I don't think that the dirty onions do much. I likewise don't think coleslaw would do much. I think what you put in the middle is going to be the protein, and that's going to have to carry it. And then you put your effort in the dipping sauce. This is the one that's got the dirty onions in it. Listen, they're tasty as hell. Make a great appetizer. You have to have the patience to work with them. But I think there's a lot of creativity you could use there. So we did 3 different usages for leftover pulled pork. We did a pulled pork grilled cheese. We did a pulled pork quesadilla, which my wife Elena said was the best of the batch today. And that one I had the Mexican street corn in, and that was the big win, I think. The Mexican street corn that had some bacon in there, going in your quesadilla with some cheese, fantastic. And then the pulled pork egg rolls, we did 2 different styles with the crispy onions and the Mexican street corn. Really, I blew it on not making a dipping sauce for that, so I think we can come back and investigate dipping sauces. I'll go back and watch my Sam the Cooking Guy because he makes all the dipping sauces in the world. But a great experiment for leftover pulled pork, which hopefully you'll have a lot of as you continue to cook in your backyard or in your kitchen or wherever you cook. So thanks for watching this video and the other videos. Love to get your comments, ways you've used pulled pork, things that have worked out better than you thought. I'd love to hear those as well. Reminder, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that, and hit the notification bell. Apparently that matters too. And I'll see you on the next video. Here we have some frozen barbecue. So these are from the last few cooks I've done actually on this channel. These are some ribs, the original St. Louis ribs I did. And here's some pulled pork. Got 2 packages of pulled pork here. I typically put them in about 1 pound chunks. And here's a package of brisket. This wasn't from the brisket video that I did. It was from a brisket cook that I did for my son's band for chopped brisket. But this is how they typically look coming out of the freezer. I use a basic food saver, nothing fancy there. And food saver bags, there are certainly other vacuum sealing technology you can use. And in fact, I'd like to get a wider vac sealer so that I could actually vac seal an entire brisket, but I have not done that yet. But if you don't have a vacuum sealer, this is one of the sort of critical pieces, I think. You can certainly do some vacuum sealing with your own freezer level Ziploc bags, and you can use a straw or water displacement to get all of the air out. But what I found is when I cook, if I get those cookers going, I'd rather cook a fair amount of food in there. Not because I'm trying to be particularly economical with fuel, though that's certainly a good argument, but it's just more efficient. So if I'm going to cook a pork butt, I'm usually going to cook at least 2 pork butts because my family really likes pulled pork. Same thing with briskets. So if I'm going to get the cooker going, I'm going to do that. We're going to use whatever I want or whatever the family wants for that particular day or for the event that we're doing. And then I'll either break it down or do it in larger segments and then freeze it, date it, and put it into the freezer. Now, why do I do that? Because I think that you can bring back barbecue and it can be as good as the day it comes off the cooker. Now, the reality is with most barbecue, you're not going to eat it right off the cooker. You're going to rest it. And so whether that rest is a 10 or 12 hour overnight in your oven or a holding oven, or whether you're bringing it back in a different way, I think you can still experience fantastic barbecue. So if you don't have vacuum sealing and freezing as part of your repertoire, I recommend you do. And we'll talk next about how I like to bring it back, which is sous vide. While there are other options, sous vide is my favorite. This is my Anova sous vide circulator. There are a ton of these on the market. I just have a small bin. Most of you who are on this channel probably already understand this, but for review, a sous vide is simply a water circulator. So that little wand you see going into that vat of water, which is currently at 75 degrees, will circulate the water in there and maintain a common temperature. Because of those vacuum sealed bags, you drop your food in there and then whatever is in the bag will not go above that temperature. Now it's important to note, just like cooking time and cooking temperature is not just time or just temperature, it's temperature over time. So if you put something in here at say 150 degrees, but you leave it in there for 18 hours, the tissue is still going to break down. Those fats are going to break down. I screwed this up really well with a lamb last year at Easter, not this current year, but the previous year. I thought it'd be a great way to break the tissue down on lamb, which it is, except for I left it in there too long and it became mushy. But for barbecue, what you can do is you can bring back barbecue in that vacuum seal bag and lose none of the fat and moisture that was in the barbecue the day you cooked it, and bring it back, I think, arguably as well or even better than the day you cooked it. The process is pretty straightforward, and we're going to do it for a couple things. I'm going to throw some barbecued or pulled pork in here. I've set this to 155. This Anova happens to go in half-degree increments. It also has Bluetooth, so you can link it to your phone, but I have managed to screw that up and not fix it. I have no cameraman today, so apologies for the odd camera work. But all you do is drop your pork in here. If your vacuum seal is good, they'll go to the bottom. If not, most things have a weighting system you can use. And it's probably about 9:30 here today. We're going to be doing a bunch of chores today, and I'm going to leave this in pretty much all day. It won't go above 155, and then I'll take it out, and we will be good to go. All right, we're at 155. This pork has been in here for about 6 hours. You guys saw me put it in here. That's what it looks like in the water bath. I'm about to take it out, put it in a bowl, give it a quick dusting, and then we'll have dinner. While I'm doing pulled pork for this particular cook, one of the things I find sous vide really useful for is brisket. If you ever screw up a brisket and it's a little bit too tight, maybe you get the flavor you want, but you didn't get the tenderness you want, sous vide is a great way that you can continue to sort of break down that tissue and get a really, really good product. We've all done it. I've done it countless times. The brisket just comes out not quite as tender as you want, and that's okay. You can still enjoy the hell out of it. You can have slices, you can chop it up, you can do whatever you want with brisket, and we'll show a couple of different ways you can use leftover brisket in this video. but it can really be that saving grace for a brisket that is just a little bit too tight. I tend to vac seal my flat and my point separately. I also tend to cube my point rather than slice my point because not everybody likes a big slice of point. It's very fatty. I happen to love it, but I cube it up. That way you can either do burnt ends with it, or you can just have cubes, which are, you know, sort of bite-sized morsels. But for the flat, which can get a little bit tight, I package that up. I'll put it in the sous vide. You can even take it a little bit higher, about 160, and leave it in there. And I promise you, you're gonna have a great experience when it comes out of that bag. And we'll show some of that in this cook as well.